Please, it's Dennis. I miss you, babe. I'll never ask for your butt again, I swear. I like your girl hole.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Hello, friends. Trace amounts of science. I'm awake. The roosters are a-crowing, and that means it's time to get into some Married Mary. We're still in the Dennis subplot, but it should be an interesting story, so let's jump into it and see what we've got today. Dennis, Val's real love interest. Married Mary Part 8B, tandem cartwheels. Oh, that's a reference to cats when they do the tandem cartwheel. Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil it. This chapter's a bit longer than Reddit allows, so I've had to split it up. This part's on the short side, though, and there's nothing at all to be done about that. Don't worry, we'll fill in the extra time. Believe me. By this time, we're well into our rehearsals for cats. Spot on the ground! The acrobatics instructor shouted as George Gay and I cartwheeled across the gymnastics studio that our cast was borrowing to learn the complicated stunts before we did them on stage. We got through about 4 passes, and then I got nervous and tightened my grip on his legs and sent us both tumbling into a heap on the mats. Yeah, I understand that completely. It's really hard for me to relax when I'm upside down, too. OP, I'm so sorry. I knew better. George, all good. We're almost there. Acrobatics instructor, take a beat. Dust yourselves off. We'll go again in a minute. OP, hey, George, do you got any advice on butt stuff for a first-timer?
Try to relax your anus.
This casual conversations that we have. Only advice I got is clean it out real good. George says, oh, fun. Who's the guy? OP, same guy I was dating during the semester. George, Braggy McFlake, and now he wants ass play. Girl, I told you that bitch was gay. Acrobatics instructor, okay, go again. George assumed a strong stance in second position, demi-plie. I centered myself, prepped, and dove between his legs, keeping my grip light this time and keeping my eyes on the ground. The momentum carried us through all 5 spins that time. They do 7 on Broadway, but our stage was only wide enough for 5. You should outdo Broadway. Like, do 5 forward and then do 5 backwards. Whoa! Standing ovation shit, I guarantee it. It still wasn't perfect, however. Both of us stumbled when we finished the stunt, and the acrobatics instructor pointed out that we weren't going in a straight line, and we would fall off the stage if we didn't fix it. Do it again! Bruised and exhausted, George and I talked some more about Dennis as we headed for the parking lot after we'd finally started to get the hang of those tandem cartwheels. George, seriously, sis, if you were psyched to try it, I'd be your biggest supporter, but you're not psyched. You're willing to hurt yourself for this guy who's literally blocked you on Facebook. Dude, George Gay the realist right now. That's a best friend for life right there. Best friends know when to tell you no. And OP says, but he only blocked me because I kink-shamed him when he brought up the butt stuff. George, no excuse. Swear to me that you won't let him in the holiest of holies until you've decided for yourself that you want it. Not because of him, but because the idea of it makes you moist. Yeah, snail trails and such. I really don't like moist as an adjective. OP says, ew! But he really does think it's the holier of the holes. He thinks the Bible permits butt stuff, but condemns it in the Vagoo. And he's suddenly siding with the Pope on the issue of rubbers. Man, people use religion to justify a lot of crazy stuff, don't they? This is on the wilder end of the spectrum. Or is it? George says, I'll bet you a bucket of fucks that boy's not even a real Christian. He's not. He's just looking for an excuse to go butt blasting without a raincoat. Forget him. Hey, I'm going to the cage tonight if you want to troll for strange with me. OP. Honey, I have no shot with any of the men there, but thanks for the pep talk. George did get corn that night. Yeah, you got corned right in the old cornhole. I mean, if you're gay, dude, I hear it's pretty easy. Like, dudes are massively driven by humping, and then you put two dudes together, and they both like each other, and the humping's never gonna stop, honestly.
Take it, boy. Yeah. Take it like a man. Yeah. Yeah. Good boy.
OP says, well, George was in the shower, utterly revolted by the rando who apparently hadn't learned to douche that ass. See what I tell you, got clean it. I was icing my ankle and typing furiously in my diary, pouring out nauseating drivel over Dennis until I finally burst into tears, poured a glass of wine, and slipped in my worn DVD of Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yeah, I do things a little bit different. I scrawl my hatred on the wall in felt tip marker and pour myself a glass of bourbon before watching Night of the Living Dead like for the 50th time. For me, it's not about leaning into the tears. I'm gonna create a comfy atmosphere. Still a hell of an excuse to dig into some ice cream though. Ice cream and bourbon. Mmm! Sweet and indulgent. George Romero, take me away. OP says that movie always made me feel better. Breakfast at Tiffany's, not Night of the Living Dead. As Holly Golightly was telling Paul to search for her black alligator shoes, I heard a knock. That wasn't the real world, right? Being a single woman living alone, I tended not to open the door unless I was expecting someone. I got very still and very quiet, but I let the movie keep playing. There was a more insistent knock. Okay, and now I was scared. Just go creep over to the peephole, take a look, you know? If it's somebody you don't want to talk to, you just turn the lights off. Pretend not to be home. If he starts calling you, you pretend to be your own answering machine, like a 90s sitcom.
Nobody home.
Val! Called a male voice. It sounded like Dennis, but I knew that his was the voice that I wanted myself to hear, so I didn't trust my perception. Valerie, please, it's Dennis. I miss you, babe. I'll never ask for your butt again, I swear. I like your girl.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Romance is alive. I miss you, girl. I opened the door, shushed him, and ushered him inside. OP, are you drunk? Dennis, you know I love to drink. He sounded drunk as hell. OP, I might be a little drunk. Sorry. If you had called first, Dennis. No worries. Can I sit? I gestured to the couch and he plopped down. Then he reached for my hand. Please, babe. I need suckage.
Shit. Is you gonna suck my You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to go crazy.
This is the worst thing ever. I hope that OP comes at him with all of the righteous indignation that is well deserved at this point. I should burn you alive for even thinking of asking. And luckily, OP has the correct response. I laughed out loud. You're kidding, right? I haven't heard a peep from you in over a month. You blocked me on social media, and now you show up wasted in the middle of the night, begging for a blowy. Dennis, matter-of-factly, as though he were posing a perfectly reasonable request. Yeah. Just get out of my house. This is not happening. I rummaged through my closet and found a spare pillow and a blanket, which I threw at Mr. Butt Blaster. Here, sleep it off. Tomorrow we'll have a coherent conversation. More than he deserves, honestly. Well, instead of curling up and passing out, Dennis made a wobbly run for the bathroom, projectile barfing all over the place as he staggered. Make sure you get it everywhere. I want that to soak deep in the carpets. God damn it! I very deliberately committed blasphemy. And his barf reeked of tequila. Not drunk my ass. George was probably right. Dennis probably wasn't even a Christian. I mean, generally you can tell by people's actions if they're actually Christian or not. This guy, not Christ-like in the least. I grabbed some bleach, a whole roll of paper towels, air freshener, and antibacterial hand soap, and started to clean up the spew. I'm not a big puker, and the few times I've gotten sick like that, I have been able to make it to the bathroom, so this was my first time cleaning up barf. Aww, I was taking care of him. This might have been a more meaningful gesture than butt stuff. I don't think he's gonna see it that way. He's not even gonna remember that he puked. I'll wait till he's done in the bathroom, then I'd drag his drunk ass into the living room and say, okay, clean up your trail. Hope he doesn't do that. She says I could hear him heaving in there for a while, and then he shouted, Val, I think I missed my piss. Help me. Yeah, it's going out of both ends, is it? The fuck you want me to do about it for real? Throw yourself in the shower. Go outside, burn those underpants in the parking lot, and don't mind me while I lock the door behind you. Oh, hell no, is OP's response. I wasn't even halfway done scrubbing spew off the arm of the couch. Now there was some sort of accident in his pants. An accident that sounded more substantial than the practice loads that popped off before he had time to get his pants off. What a weird individual. OP just says, what the fuck, dude? Dennis, he's not that bad. Need clean undie, though. Now you're just regressing into a child. I can't do this. I put you up for adoption. Anybody want him? No? I guess he's going in a dumpster. That's dark. OP says, why would I have men's underwear lying around? Dennis says, boy shorts. I like those. Boy shorts. He wanted to wear a pair of my boy shorts. I sighed. Okay, fine. Listen, get in the shower, wash the mess off your underwear, hang them up, and I'll bring you some boy shorts once you're clean. Yes, boy shorts for little bitty baby boys that puke and shit all over themselves. Just the attraction, if it's still there after this, I'm gonna be amazed. Although wifey has seen me at my darkest moments, similar moments, and she's stuck around, so I don't know. OP says I could hear him fumbling around with the shower, but I was not gonna help him. Oh, come on. Showers are always turned on in all these fucking different ways. You gotta be like a NASA engineer to get the shower right the first time. As much as I longed for genuine intimacy to develop between us, it thus far had not. I had felt all compassionate and girlfriendy as I scrubbed his puke off my carpet and furniture, but yeah, I wasn't ready to wipe his ass. Even the scrubbing of the furniture is too much. He's been nothing but an imposition in your life. And eventually you'll see it, but that point is not yet. Dennis calls out, Babe! OP, don't call me babe. You lose that privilege when you vanish. Dennis, okay. Can you hold my hand in the shower? It's wobbly. Yes, hold my hand as I scrub my own shit from my legs and ball sack. I don't think I want to. I hope you do fall down in there, and the fact that you're talking like a 2005 scene kid only makes me want it that much more. I sighed. Let me take care of the tequila spew, and then I'll help you steady yourself. And to think, I'd be worried that he would judge me for being slightly tipsy from a glass of wine. Yeah, he's a human puke stain for real. Whatever happened to grand romantic gestures, you know? Don't just show up to my house drunk. Come with something for me, even if it's flowers you stole out of the front yard. Just anything. Not this. I heard the shower power up, and I kept scrubbing puke till I reached the bathroom door, and I dreaded the possibility of encountering a poopy mess. Yeah, that was far too personal. Even though he should have been the embarrassed one, I would have been mortified to encounter an accident of that nature. Nevertheless, I knocked. Dude, just go to bed. Say you forgot he was there. Just pray he doesn't steal any of your stuff. OP says, Dennis, do you still need a hand? Dennis, yes, and boy hurts. I cautiously opened the door. He hadn't done a great job of getting all the barf into the toilet, but I could neither see nor smell any other sort of mess. Yeah, he was just sort of turtle-heading it. And sometimes when you retch real hard, the turtle, well, his head pops off. I saw a pair of wet boxers hanging over the shower curtain, so the mess must have just been pee. Or maybe he farted and was so drunk he thought he pooped. It was very weird that he was so hell-bent on wearing my underwear. Maybe there had been no accident after all, and he just wanted my underwear. Okay, whatever. I'd hold his drunky hand. Likes butt stuff, wants to wear women's underwear. Are the pieces falling into place for you? A little bit?
He's gay!
I'm not gay.
He's gay!
I reached around the shower curtain and expected my outstretched hand to be met with his hand. Instead, he managed to nudge my hand with his member. And it had risen. Oh my god, dude. What? OP says, what the fuck? Dennis, I said I need a hand. You don't have to blow. Jerk is fine. The only option here is to firmly grasp it and use it to drag him to the front door. Now get out of my house! Don't do it, OP. Please don't do it. OP says, having neither seen nor heard from Dennis in over a month, his desire for a tug was both perplexing and slightly flattering. Oh, damn it, dude. I know I shouldn't have been flattered, but I still had feelings for a certain version of him. Yeah, the one that doesn't exist. Even so, as much as he had jerked me around, I wasn't gonna jerk him until he sobered up and had an adult conversation with me. Oh, big ups for small miracles, honestly. Not only was it a matter of upholding at least some semblance of my own self-respect, but also my whole body ached from an evening of learning how to do tandem cartwheels. I lacked the energy to yank off a drunk dude. In the next installment, you'll meet my colon hydrotherapist. Well, that sounds like a treat. Sounds like this relationship's going to the next level. And I find that horrifying. Like the fact that he didn't ask about how things had been or how even just today was. He immediately comes in and presents like you have to put it in your mouth. That's the wildest thing in the world to me. You would have to be drunk to think that was ever gonna fucking work. And then his last ditch effort is just like, yeah, give me one of those tired wife hand jobs while I'm in the shower. Oh man. It was a short part indeed, but I gotta say, I don't think anything else but Married Mary / Dennis / all these other characters is going to sate my lust for cringe. So I guess we'll carry on and wrap up the Dennis subplot, and if it's a nice long video, well, good for everybody. So join me over there. The prematurely popping, butt-blasting hobbit. Married Mary Part 8C. This will be the end of Part 8 officially. And up to this point, Dennis had claimed to be a virtuous teetotaler, but something had apparently gone amiss. He just staggered into my apartment, hurled tequila all over the place from his mouth, and claimed to have missed his pants. Neither seeing nor smelling evidence of dookie, I surmised that he was pretending to clean underpants because he wanted to wear mine for some damn reason. Oh, I know what the reason is, OP. You'll learn too eventually. And my lovesick, dong-struck, smitten AF ass was flattered, somehow. The freshly showered, drunken little horned-up weasel finally stretched out on the couch, wearing a pair of my black boy shorts. His semi-alert junk was pitching a tent, and the sack was hanging out of the small undergarment that wasn't really made to contain a mail package. He kept slurring something about certain body parts being really blue. I knew better. Mr. Butt Blaster over there was in the psych research program, while I was in the MFT / sex therapy program, although we had to take a few of the same classes. Having some of the therapy training under my belt, I knew for sure that blue balls, yeah, that's generally a myth. gonadopelvic pain resulting from prolonged and unreleased arousal may feel subjectively painful to a small number of delusional horn dogs, although self-report measures are notoriously unreliable. However, more often than not, manipulative horn dogs use blue balls to coerce potential partners into a pity bang or pity tug or pity whatever have you. And I have the receipts, or as we say in academia, the references. Well, I'm gonna look into my big bag of anecdotal evidence and pull this out here. It did hurt that one time, and I remember it vividly. OP says, dude, that's not a real condition. Plus your stuff's hanging out of my underwear. Nothing's blue. I'd feel better if you covered yourself with that blanket. Dennis, it's real. I swear, I'm in so much pain. OP, go yank it in the bathroom if it's bothering you that much. Dennis, but that's a sin. Oh yes, pick and choose. OP says, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm not gonna tell Jesus. Dennis, I need to call my friend first. We gotta pray. OP, you need to sleep it off, and you can pray in the morning. I hope this takes a guitar beard twist, where she wraps him up in blankets until he sweats a whole lot and has to do an enema to get water back into his body. Remember Guitar Beard? God, that's so good. OP says, I covered him with a blanket as he continued to mumble about his private parts. I think I heard him apologize for being drunk, but I don't know if he was talking to me or to Jesus. No matter. I got into bed and stared at the ceiling, both irate and elated that Dennis was asleep on my couch. I did not sleep at all. Me personally, I'm irate that he's on your couch, but you know, you do you. At least you didn't give in to his whining and all this crap. I see some strengthening of the spine here. It's a very good sign. As dawn crept through the curtains and provided a gentle glow in my little studio apartment, I heard the golden god stir. Footsteps. I heard the bathroom door close, water running, toilet flushing, and there was a bit more rustling around, and then I heard the door open. I watched through half-closed eyes as he tiptoed towards the door in clothes that still looked damp. He gingerly turned the deadbolt. OP, sneaking out. Dennis jumped. Oh, no, I just didn't want to wake you. OP, you really think I'd be able to sleep? I've been writing stories in my head all night, and you're in them. Dennis, sweet! Can I play myself in the movie version? I glared at him, but I don't think he could see my face clearly. His glasses were perched on the top of his head. OP, anything you'd like to say to me? Dennis, honestly, babe, I don't remember that much. I think they goofed and put alcohol in my drink, even though I ordered it a virgin. Yeah, bars are known to goof like that. Just a bunch of goofy guys doling out the liquid that keeps this establishment running for free. OP says, don't call me babe. Dennis, okay, sweetie. I really don't remember last night. OP, do you remember the past month? You asked me for a really revolting, intimate favor, and I declined, and you dropped off the face of the earth. It really hurt my feelings. Am I nothing more to you than a butt to screw? Yeah, you totally got two other hoes. No, just cut that out. We can't use that. Don't actually cut it out. Oh, you really feeling froggy today? Dennis says, no, but, sweetie, it was just an idea. I love you, and He said some more words, but that Delphic L-bomb was making the blood rush through my ears to the point where I couldn't hear anything else he was saying. Oh, come on, he's just making more sounds! You're not buying this, are you? He was leaning down to kiss me when I floated back into my body. What? Dennis? See you next week! OP? Yeah. Text me the details, I'm half asleep and I'm not sure I'll remember. Dennis? I got you, babe. OP, hold up. Are you still wearing my underwear? Dennis grinned. Yep. What a weirdo. I shook my head, laughing a little and feeling slightly flattered that he wanted to keep something of mine so close to himself. Keep them. Consider them a reminder of the treacheries of tequila, I guess. He nodded, kissed my hand, and sauntered out the door. What the actual foo had just happened here? You got played like a fiddle. And he did take some of your stuff! You won the battle with him last night, but the war is far from over, it seems. Next part is called Girl Talk! The next evening, I met up with Lucy and two of her friends from a recent show, Pick Me and Doormat. These three had bonded over a shared burning desire for a forever love. Out of the three, Lucy remained the most jaded and skeptical. After all, she could override her own desires and read people well enough to discern the possibility that Scooter, her crush, was a skin fluter. Skin flautist? He was gay. He'd at least had the decency to come out to her when he picked up on her romantic feelings for him, but Scooter was still deep in the closet to the rest of the world, however. Doormat asked, Lucy, what's going on with Scoots? You guys make such a cute couple. Lucy, yeah, that's not happening. He's got too much baggage from his ex-wife. Pick Me. Well, maybe you can find out what she did to run him off and do the exact opposite. Lucy, yeah, I don't think I have the money for that. Lucy and I both laughed. Doormat and Pick Me didn't get the joke. Oh, gender transition. But yeah, there's a reason they didn't get it. Lucy says, okay, Val, these are my boy crazy backstage gal pals. Present your case. OP, the whole case, as in like butt stuff? Lucy, no, maybe no butt stuff with this crowd. Pick Me giggled. Butt stuff, I can handle talking about that. What's going on? Does your guy want to try it in the pooper?
I want to put it in your ass.
Lucy, okay, apparently they are fine with it. OP says, well, yeah, he does, but that's not even the worst of it. He disappears, and then he reappears acting like nothing was ever wrong. And he's a religious fanatic, at least when it's convenient. He's never actually mentioned going to church. He doesn't even wear a cross. And then he lied about this summer camp. Doormat, girl, just give him the booty. That's why he's being shifty. He wants something taboo. Most guys feel like they're bending the rules a little bit. OP, but I don't feel Pick Me. Do you love this guy or not? At least try things his way. A couple of idiots. Listen to George Gay. He gets it. Lucy says, I don't know, ladies. We've got to consider her personal limits. Then again, if you really think it'll land you the love of your life, I mean, what's 30 seconds of discomfort? Pick Me and Doormat giggled. OP, it's not always that quick. Lucy, okay, girl, but George Gay and I have already started scripting a sketch called The Prematurely Popping Butt Blasting Hobbit, and we're going to do it at a show at the Imp as soon as it's ready. And I talk about him in my stand-up. Check this out. He's got to be good at border control because he's a minute man. A miniature minute man. Nothing? Huh. Tough crowd. He's already a one-pump chump. And he seriously wants to put it in the donut instead of the eclair. Hey, babe, sorry I haven't called. How about we, oh, darn it. I didn't even get my pants off, but at least I got my rocks off. Who else but Dennis? Beep, 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 beep.
Oh my god.
Yeah, too much, I think, right?
Stay in it. It doesn't look that bad.
I tapped her on the head with my straw, secretly trying not to laugh. Rude. Please never let him hear that, Lucy. I promise you that no good, clean Christian boy would ever come to an open mic night at the Raunch Room or a show at the Imp. That place has gotten vile. The other girl in our troupe up and quit, and the director replaced her with this fat-ass sex maniac. She's disgusting! I know who we're talking about. It's the titular character of the saga. She's obsessed with George Strait and won't stop going on about how much she needs some Georgie Porgy sexy time because she's got blue lips. Yeah, that one's definitely real, for real. And then she sits there in her micro mini with her fleshy hoo-ha hanging out, stuffing her face and rambling on about all this freaky deaky stuff she wants to do with this dude who's like my freaking brother. Oh, I can't stand it. OP. Huh. Gross. Pick me. Wait, Lucy, did you say Danny's a good Christian boy? Val, you have to reel him in. Yeah, there's only one way to do it. Right up the poop chute. OP says, that's the problem. I'm not sure I believe him when he says he's Christian. George Gay thinks he's using religion as an excuse for some weird stuff in the sack. Doormat, I bet he's totally Christian. They make the best husbands. You gotta do what you can do to lock this one down. And if you can't give him exactly what he wants in bed, then give him something close. He's a man, and you can't blame him if he goes looking for it elsewhere. She really is a doormat, isn't she? Why are we hanging around these girls at all? Bad vibes, bad juju. Lucy, are you okay? These are your friends? Yuck. I guess OP's feeling the same way, because she said, I feel my fists clenching. Pick me and doormat were making my brain implode. OP. Or maybe I need to admit that I'm not right for him and walk away. I mean, it sounds impossible right now, but I think it'd be for the best in the grand scheme of things. Pick me. No, as a woman, it's your duty to make yourself into exactly what your man wants. It sounds old-fashioned, but old-fashioned works. That's why our grandparents never got divorced. They never got divorced because it was a two-way relationship. What you're talking about, this whole thing, that's one way. You don't go down a one-way road. It's only gonna end in tragedy. OP says, yeah, I'm pretty sure Grandpappy wasn't running around trying to put it in Granny's hiney. Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for that, OP. Great. Now I've got to think about that! Next section is called How Not to Prepare for a Date. My love-stuck brain convinced my love-struck ass to prepare itself for the possibility of an invasion. No. Oh no! Dennis had texted me that he was coming over on Saturday night around 8 p.m. and he wanted nothing more than conversation and respectful making out, but he also asked me to wear lingerie. We're really just... critical thinking faculties are offline. On Friday, I went to Victoria's Secret and abused my credit card with a very pretty, very flattering halter teddy with Swarovski crystals adorning the plunging neckline. I'm pretty flat-chested, but I'm also short-waisted, so the plunge gives the illusion of length. Once I was all set up for lingerie, I got my hair professionally done, extensions and all. Imagine having 1,000 teeny tiny tight ponytails all over your scalp. Hair extensions like that will give you one hell of a headache. My hair looked fantastic though. Yeah, pain is beauty, as they say. My wife likes to get these like really tight braids done, and then, yeah, she only keeps it in for a couple days because it gets itchy and causes a headache. But we only need it for one night, right? I guess. Do you sleep in extensions? Whatever, it's fine. Then I went to the dentist and had my teeth whitened with medical-grade lasers. Wow. This plunged me even further into debt, and it hurt like hell. I was crying and shaking by the end of the procedure, and my teeth hadn't even been slightly yellowed beforehand, but I wanted those Hollywood caliber, blinding white teeth. It's all pointless. I like my yellow teeth. I smoke and drink coffee. Even if I had them whitened, it's gonna be back to like it was in a week. And then, feeling like I'd just been punched in the mouth, I went to the day spa to have every bit of body hair removed, save my eyebrows and eyelashes. Oh, this really is over the top, isn't it? Dennis despised body hair on women, even the vellus hair, peach fuzz, that tends to crop up when you're a bit malnourished, so I had everything waxed. Dude, Dennis is a weird guy. There's some subtext to that. I'm sure OP's considered it before. I mean, it's probably okay, but deep down in my bones, I don't know, man. It doesn't feel okay. And I really need to emphasize the word everything. In everything waxed. I'm not just talking about my crotch and armpits. I'm talking forearms, back, cheeks, toes. It was like he wanted a plastic doll. Yeah, he should have just done that. That would be a lot cheaper.
So, a school teacher. That must be interesting.
And I was more than willing to get as close to that as I possibly could. Being an impressionable, people-pleasing young woman in the 20-teens. If you can't relate to this, you might be feeling horrified. I'm certainly feeling embarrassed when I look back on it. I'm quite horrified. It's really not the plastic dolls that I'm worried about. They don't have feelings. Dennis can make that plastic doll as miserable as he wants. Listen, I know this was dumb AF. No matter how much I abused my credit card with flattering garments and beauty services and cosmetic dentistry, I'd never be Hollywood hot. I was regular person attractive with a former scene kid slant, which basically meant that nerds, theater weirdos, and recovering scene kids found me hot. Normatively attractive dudes flirted with me often enough. Gross guys gushed over me. Although I still don't know how to describe or even identify a bona fide neckbeard. And image-conscious posers didn't even give me the time of day because I was a little bit weird. I don't vibe with guys of that ilk, so their indifference didn't bother me. I think gross guys describes neckbeards well enough. It really has to do with like the ego and the entitlement. If they've got like a nerdy slant to them, I guess that's another point. But yeah, do your best to ignore them. That's my advice. Do not engage. Dennis's sporadic indifference was another matter. I'd always been relatively fine with the way I looked until Dennis and his hot and cold whiplash got into my head. If only I were Hollywood hot enough to serve as a trophy on his arm, maybe he'd consistently pay attention to me. Barf! I'm glad you see that now, OP. And sure, I had considered that our personalities didn't quite mesh. Even so, he kept calling, sporadically, and I kept answering, faithfully. So I decided to focus on something that I could pretend to have some semblance of control over. I could rack up a shit ton of debt on superficial crap that most straight guys probably wouldn't even notice, but that might make me feel more confident in my own unnaturally hairless skin. This is also fucking cringe to recall. It's okay, OP, you're doing great. This is all part of the human experience. My methods might differ a bit from yours, but the idea is still the same. OP says, I know now that when the right emotional connection is there, you don't feel the need to turn yourself into a plastic replica of a human being. Both parties just joyfully coexist and enjoy each other's vibes. It's not that complicated, nor is it expensive. Yeah, I sort of only found that once and I married her. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the butt stuff. Don't worry, Dennis didn't. He's gonna bring this up every day for the rest of his life. So on Saturday morning, I went to the Sao Paulo Center for Wellness and Healing and got my very first high colonic, just in case. What the hell's that mean? I wish I had a disgusting story to share, but it actually wasn't all that big of a deal. My colon hydrotherapist was named Harmony, and she was able to put me at ease. I explained that I might try butt stuff with my dude, with my guy that I was, with the guy that I was kind of seeing, so I wanted to be clean. Harmony enthused, that'll be fun, it's so good for you. Even if you're not planning on having visitors in there, a high colonic flushes out years and years of toxins that get trapped in the pocket of your large intestines. Now you think Harmony's just towing the company line here. She's really a big fan of high colonics and recommends them to everyone she knows. But the truth is, in secret, is she getting that booty ate? It better safe than sorry, you know? That's how you catch hepatitis, kids. Trace amounts of science. All this was complete crap, but Harmony was really sweet, and she did a good job of keeping my mind off of what was happening. Ultimately, it wasn't painful, just a bit uncomfortable, and I did feel better and lighter and more energized when it was over. Probably no different than the way an average person would feel after taking a giant dump. I love that feeling. Before I headed home, I stopped by yet another salon for eyelash extensions, a mani-pedi, even though I hate having fake nails, and I hate having my feet touched. Remember though, I needed to be Hollywood perfect. And I racked up some more debt on a bottle of expensive snake oil that was allegedly packed with pheromones that would drive any man mad with lust. Yeah, just to dabble do ya, you'll be attacked in the street by a pack of wild animals. No, I don't think that sounds good to me. Frobobs is totally real though, guys. Well, then I suppose I was prepared as I could be now. Lightheaded and woozy from the emptying of my lower intestines, combined with the fact that I hadn't eaten anything since Wednesday of that week, I made the long drive back to my apartment in Wellsprings and started tidying up. Yeah, but also maybe eat a sandwich or something too, though. Eating disorders are no joke. There's some serious negative long-term health effects on your body. As the 8 p.m. hour grew nearer, I wiggled into the halter teddy. I checked my hair and makeup, I changed my shoes 3 times, I spritzed snake oil all over myself, and then I poured myself a small glass of rosé to take the edge off. I very gently brushed my insanely white and incredibly sensitive teeth and gargled with Listerine so that Dennis wouldn't be able to smell booze on my breath, and to counteract any fast-acting halitosis that might have been present. The clock said 8:15, so I dimmed the lights, lounged on the couch, and waited. He never showed. Damn, dude. Ugh. This is soul-crushing. What the fuck, man? All of that! It's over now, right? Now it's over for real? Oh, cuts me so deep. OP says, laugh at me. I'm not kidding. Please laugh. Or at least cringe. Yeah, it gave me one of those sad cringes. This was some of the dumbest bullshit I've ever done in an effort to please some dude. And then, to get stood up! It felt like the end of the fucking world at the time. But it just seems pathetic when I look back on it. Yeah, time's funny that way. Although, to give some grace to my lovesick younger self, it really was a pretty harsh blow to my ego. I mean, at least call and cancel, right? Oh, that's too much to ask from a spiritually confused young man. Okay. For whatever it's worth, I wore the halter teddy for Axton a few years later, and he seemed to really appreciate it. He also didn't give a damn about the peach fuzz on my forearms. Okay, back to the story. I am glad you got some use out of it, I suppose. Dennis has to be just a sociopath. Nobody can be this forgetful. He was so excited for the butt, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna go actually. Or he didn't even say it, just don't show up. I'm dead inside. This section's called Stood Up, Stand Up. George and Lucy soon figured out what was going on, came over with hard liquor and some trees, listened to me rant, shared some of their own stories about being sorely disappointed by men, and cracked me up with their prematurely popping, butt-blasting Hobbit sketch, which would eventually lead to me becoming a regular at the Imp. But, in the meantime, how did I cope with the crushing disappointment that seemed to permanently permeate my mind long after the golden weasel went completely radio silent? Again. Well, once we were in Tech Week for cats, I barely had time to eat, sleep, poop, let alone obsess over Dennis. And once the show opened up, I took up smoking again. I dyed my hair purple, and I had a green finch, a linnet bird, a nightingale, and a blackbird tattooed on my ribs. It's a very pretty and meaningful tattoo, and I've never regretted it. I loved having purple hair, although I did eventually get tired of the upkeep. And I'd forgotten how friggin' comforting a cigarette can be. I still miss smoking sometimes. Kicking that habit might have been the hardest frickin' thing I've ever done, but I'm a soprano again. In my world, that is very, very important. I also work with my voice. Fuck, man, I gotta give up smoking again. As far as tattoos, I don't think most people regret their tattoos. With the caveat that, yeah, if it's attached to a relationship, it's probably going to get done over at some point. So, about halfway through the run of cats, and my phone rang at around 2 a.m. It was a number I didn't recognize. 716 area code. Must have been the wrong number. I pressed ignore and rolled over. The phone rang again. Same number. Again. Same number. Oh, why the hell am I even trying to build suspense here? I finally answered the butt-blasting weasel's call. OP, who the fuck is this? Dennis. Hey, babe. Good to talk to you. OP, with as much venom as I could muster. You! I had written you off as a lost cause. He laughed. No, babe. I told you. I'm staying with my bro here in Buffalo. I'm coming back to Cali in a few weeks. What you wearing? OP, you're seriously asking me what I'm wearing after you left me holding my dick and didn't call me for 6 weeks. Plus, it's 2 a.m. Dennis. Oh, darn. It's 11 here. I didn't think about the time difference. Yeah, you don't think about many things, do you, Dennis? OP says, yeah. Well, I have a matinee tomorrow, so if you really want to talk, call me tomorrow evening. Dennis. So sweet. What show are you doing? OP. Cats. I told you that. Dennis. Ew, nobody likes that play anymore. OP. I do. Our audiences seem to. Dennis. Hey, you want to hear about the show that I just helped direct here in New York? OP. Tomorrow. Dennis. You want me to send you a selfie? I wouldn't mind listening to you, do it solo. OP says, that's a sin. And hangs up on him. And silences her phone. Beautifully done. I think we've finally broken on through to the other side. And glorious, isn't it? OP says he didn't call the next evening. Hopefully you're just over it by now. Expect that. Midway through the following week, I tried to call the 716 number. No answer. I had fumed and stewed and cursed his name and gotten dangerously intoxicated and written about 100 pages of scorned woman rage after he stood me up, but in time, I put all my focus back into rehearsals. I planned activities with my parents and my brothers since they were coming to Wellsprings to see cats. I got back into burlesque. I enjoyed mocking the weasel with Darius during my voice lessons, and I admitted that he'd been absolutely right about the intolerably arrogant character of the man that I'd idealized. And while I wasn't taking summer classes, I looked forward to the classes that I'd be taking in the fall. Things had evened out, and I had pretty much gone back to being my perky, happy-go-lucky self. I can still sense you clinging on to hope a little bit, calling the number back and whatnot. But yeah, I'm glad we're moving past it. About now's where we can probably close the book, right? Everything all wrapped up with a neat little bow? No, of course he needs one last debut. Then Dennis rang again, claiming to be back in town. He claimed he was desperate to see me. I caved and agreed to meet him at his place. Well, why do you do this to yourself? It's just gonna make me sad all over again. Oh, I finally got my equilibrium back, and he's like, well, let me fuck that up for you. Yeah, you do every time. Ugh. OP says, we have firmly established that my spine is not yet reliably functional at this point in the story. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know, OP, but it still makes me sad, okay? But go off about my younger self's flimsy spine in the comments. No skin off my ass. Back at Dennis's place, things started to get a little spicy. And he clutched his nuts and hung his head and begged me to whip him as he wept over the wanton sins of his wicked wiener. Wow, this just went 0 to 100, didn't it? No, a bit of BDSM just for fun between consenting adults isn't necessarily shocking or off-putting, but this felt unhealthy. I mean, the entire fucking thing's unhealthy. What? What? Even students of psychology battle with mental health issues, just as med students sometimes get physically ill. Dennis needed help. You can't save him. Unless he wants to change, you can't save him. Just know that. My best guess was that he needed some combination of psychological and spiritual counseling, but I'm not sure that such an ideal hybrid exists. I tried to assure him that I was perfectly happy to avoid engaging in anything intimate, and I encouraged him to think of alternative activities, not butt stuff, that might prove exciting without inciting guilt or shame. But he banished me, accusing me of being a temptress. This is going so well. You think you can fix that? And my head was re-fucked after that bizarre encounter. Like I said, knock you right off your equilibrium. So before long, due largely to my insistence on making things much, much weirder than they needed to be, things got super weird. Still dazed by Dennis's bizarre behavior and ensuing radio silence, I decided to take drastic measures in an attempt to forget about the Golden God once and for all. That drastic measure was Scumbanger. And yeah, I'd rather not talk about that again. It's embarrassing. Apologies to anyone who applies Rule 34 to cats. No smut for you. I mean, there's a whole ass internet out there, but this is not the place for it. At least not today. But, fun random fact, furries are not into Cats, the musical. They despise it. Mainly because the actors in Cats don't wear fursuits. We wore elaborately decorated leotards and tights. And the actors in Cats have human faces. We were wearing heavy makeup, but you could still completely tell that we were people. There isn't the anonymity that a fursona would allow, so no, we didn't have to deal with any furries yanking it in the audience or skulking around by the stage door. Gee, that is a thing I hadn't even considered. What? Can't come out of left field. Now I'm thinking that it did happen. Anyway, let's pop back over to the Imp. Once Cats had opened, it was much, much easier to see the weeknight shows. The improvers were elated since George Gay's rehearsal schedule, which was the same as mine, no longer forced them to rehearse during absurd hours. And once the prematurely popping, butt-blasting Hobbit was ready to perform as a skit, I started seeing the shows at the Imp on the regular. Here we go, finding our equilibrium again, okay? Hold steady this time. Steady! It was all a lot of fun at first. Mo hadn't disclosed to me that I was in his boom boom crosshairs, so I thought he was just some eccentric old dude who made up bizarre stories using tarot cards as prompts. The fat-ass sex maniac that Lucy had told me about was terrible at improv, but holy crap, I did laugh my ass off at her outfits, and the fact that she often got on stage, plopped down with truckloads of grub, and proceeded to engage in what we would now call a mukbang, while the real comedians acted out a sketch. Was she actually ahead of her time all this time? Yeah, get on YouTube and do it. They'll love it. Eventually, somebody in the chat or comments is going to offer you $50,000 to eat a live gerbil. And you have to be strong enough to say no. Lucy isn't strong enough to say no. Within the month, Cats wrapped up. Mo divulged his disgustingness and pitched a seething hissy fit because he was rejected by an older woman. Even so, I continued to spend my Thursday nights at the Imp, careful to avoid Mo and determined to keep a safe distance from Mary. But the fall semester was upon us before I'd even had enough time to get Dennis completely out of my system. I'm embarrassed to admit that Mo had given me a love-banishing spell that involved a candle, a pendulum, a few drops of my own blood, and myrrh oil. He had passed on this super chill Wiccan bro wisdom before he revealed his romantic intentions, and he lorded his generosity of spirits and spells over me when I rejected his advances. Whatever. I still nicked my skin, mixed the blood with myrrh, smeared it on the crystal pendulum, and let it swing over the flame, allowing the ideomotor effect to magically push the pendulum clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on what I wanted to hear. If I'm being brutally honest, it comforted me in those moments, and no, the skin nicking wasn't self-inflicted. Are we allowed to use those words together? Let me put it another way. I didn't get any kicks from those nicks. I didn't even really believe in spells. I just Felt like I needed a ritual. I needed an illusion of control. It was utter foolishness, but I suppose I could have done worse things. I suppose I would do worse things in due time. Well, if that ain't the truest statement. I mean, I've said before when I was living in my car and stuff, I used to read tarot cards. And I don't really believe in it. Most of it's just so I could eat, stuff like that. However, there may have been a time or two that I read for myself. Just for fun, just to activate my almonds, get my mind off something. Get a vivid and detailed glimpse into the distant future.
I can see the future!
No, not that last one. The fall semester is where we are now, just before the events of Married Mary. And the golden weasel, prematurely popping, butt-blasting hobbit, born-again horn dog, woman's underwear-wearing weirdo, indeed resurfaced when our class schedules forced him to. We had biological psychology together, which didn't exactly thrill me. That had been my favorite class as an undergrad, and I was psyched to experience the grad school version. I wasn't about to let Dennis ruin it for me, so I vowed to keep my contact with him purely surface level, even if that meant busting out Moe's bullshit spell every week after class. Are you gonna hold steady? I hope you're gonna hold steady. Of course, Dennis tried to yank me around a little more once the fall semester was in full swing, though it was heartbreaking to keep him at arm's length, and though I faltered many times, I realized that I simply liked him more than he liked me. And that was nobody's fault. We met, we clicked, we low-key dated, we hooked up, and it all meant one thing to me and quite another to him. The longer things carried on, the more opaque the emotional connection became, and the harder I tried, and the harder I loved. Meanwhile, he slacked off and loved far more lightly, if indeed at all. My feelings waxed as his waned. Yes, he should have manned up and had a conversation about his waning feelings for me. That would have sucked in the moment, but it would have saved me heaps of heartache in the long run. It's rare that will ever happen. Humans are selfish creatures. That conversation's uncomfortable. I don't want to have it. I know we made this baggage together, but you get to deal with it. This part's called The Diary. Where did I go wrong with Dennis? I think the question is, where does his mother go wrong? I think I went wrong right off the bat when I dreamt up my own version of him, fell madly in love with it, and then gave that pompous ass undue attention and too much forgiveness because he was the avatar of that dream guy I invented. It's happened to me before. I think I've been in love with fictional characters, mostly my own, more times than I've been in love with real human beings. How do you feel about anime girls? Is that weird? It's probably weird. It's a little weird. Luckily, I don't write much, and I only watch shows where the characters are largely hateable. It's Always Sunny, Dexter, House, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. We're in the age of the anti-hero, so yeah, I guess unless you wrote it, it's hard to fall in love with a fictional character these days. Anyway, OP says, I've also heard that this is like an arrow/ace thing. I'm gray arrow, gray ace, in case anyone's confused by my undying love for Dennis and the crazy hot intimacy with Axton. Oh, I left that part out of the funky epilogue, didn't I? Best to keep those details private. And I'm not going to launch into an explanation about what gray arrow/ace means. I realize it's annoying to go on about such things. If you know, you know. If you don't, you probably don't care. I'm not offended at all, and it's a completely understandable indifference. Well, thank you for understanding my indifference. If people want to know, Google's right there. I'm not going to spoil the fun for myself. So, what else went wrong with Dennis? Does he deserve to get tarred and feathered, drawn and quartered, locked in the stocks to have rotten food thrown in his face? I don't think so. I think he might have been on the spectrum. I think he was far less experienced than he let on when we entered into something vaguely resembling a romance. Eventually, I succeeded in backing away from him, although I never dramatically cut ties. That would have required giving him more undeserved attention. I simply allowed myself to lose touch with him. Sometimes that's just fine. And yeah, I think the first time he jizzed in his pants, I'd be able to tell that, oh, he's not very well versed at this kind of thing. Am I angry that he led me on? Not anymore. Early on into the fall semester, he tried to recreate the vibe we'd had initially, but I just couldn't trust him. I still liked him more than I cared to admit, but I politely refused his quasi-romantic advances, for the most part. But as I slipped a few times and found myself alone with him, resulting in varying degrees of intimate contact, a bizarre new behavior emerged. Dennis would sometimes ignore me at school. Grad school? Nah, son, we're going back to middle school. It was infuriating. The ignoring usually happened when things had gotten spicy between us, but it wasn't consistent. Sometimes he was extra sweet and touchy-feely after things got hot. It was unpredictable, inconsistent, senseless, smoking hot, ice cold, and completely maddening. Ain't nobody got time for that, especially as you get older. Go take a flying leap. I captured every little thing that transpired between us in that dreadful, dramatic diary of mine, which was brimming with saccharine statements about my undying adoration of Dennis, the Golden God, the Golden Weasel, the prematurely popping butt-blasting hobbit. His moniker depended on the qualitative nature of my most recent interaction with him. I often took inspiration from Sex and the City and tried to write like Carrie when she was pining over Big. Oh man, I wrote tons of terrible poems. I wrote a handful of halfway decent poems. I tried to close the door on Dennis by writing a definitive ending to our dalliance. I tried to rewrite some of the more confusing interactions and make them make sense. I cried myself to sleep in an effort to maximally suffer because I still believed in the notion that one must reach a suffering quota before she's earned the right to be happy. That's total BS, and I realize that now. I do want to interject here and say that suffering can be a good thing, but you have to be suffering for yourself. Suffering in pursuit of something greater. Nobody has to earn the right to be happy, but if you want to be the happiest that you'll ever be, sometimes you gotta mix a little bit of hurt in there, you know? It's just my sadomasochism speaking up? I don't know. Now that Dennis was partially reinforcing my pining, my emotional high was off the charts whenever he would randomly pop up and express romantic desires. The high was even higher when he continued to acknowledge my existence following the expression of romantic desires. I briefly became a behaviorist and worked privately with one of my professors to research schedules of reinforcement and the partial reinforcement extinction effect in relation to a phenomenon that Dr. Helen Fisher calls frustration attraction. In layman's terms, we were researching the Dennis system. So my unintentionally hilarious Giga Cringe diary also included a crap ton of research notes, many of which were terrible ideas. If you've ever made notes on a project, you know that the cutting room floor is there for a reason. I don't use the cutting room floor, I just mash it into Patreon and members-only content. But I had accidentally saved my cutting room floor as a Word document for whatever reason. A year or so later, Funky hacked into my computer, found my diary, posted it to Tumblr. I wouldn't even find out about the publication until years after I dumped Funky, and by that time an older, even weaselier version of Dennis had seen it. More on that in the abridged goblinization, which is like the last part of Married Mary and Funky P together at once. OP says, I happened to glimpse a comment in chat when the first Dennis video was airing, and the commenter was wondering, is Val going to become a beard? Well, you're not entirely off base to wonder about that. I'm quite sure that the diary in question gets a little legbeardy in places, although I never camped outside of Dennis's apartment, I never waited by his car to ambush him. I would attempt contact twice. If he remained unresponsive, I refused to fill his inbox with whiny pleas for attention. That's what my diary was for, and that's why and where it gets so legbeardy. I also never sent unsolicited naughty images. As a matter of fact, I never sent him anything naughty, even when he asked, because I was too afraid that he would flip a switch and become revolted by my wicked feminine form in the time between the request and the delivery. Pathetic? Yes. Legbeardy? I guess it depends on which traits you consider legbeardy. My research on legbeards is nowhere near complete. I can't make the call on that. They are a rare and elusive species. Anyway, I was able to remove the dramatic diary from Tumblr, so it's not live anymore, but I still have it on a thumb drive. somewhere. I'd consider posting it if I'm able to find it amidst boxes of notebooks and knickknacks, although it really is nothing but whiny, lovesick, Carrie Bradshaw wannabe cringe. But to give my whiny, lovesick younger self some grace, Dennis was behaving erratically, yanking me around and holding me personally responsible for the sins of his pee-pee. On certain levels, I think he had a right to be pissed. On other levels, I did this to myself by putting that horny little shame monster on a pedestal. I said it before, I say it again, no pedestals! Pedestals are banned! It never helps, it only hurts. Pre-funky is this section, I believe the last section. I suppose I have to close all this out with a small mention of Whiskers. He didn't leave much of an impression on me until he upped his game and got way more obvious with the flirting. My head was rammed so far up Dennis's ass, even when I hated him, perhaps even most of all when I hated him, that I paid no attention to any other man, with the obvious exception of the superficial attention that I paid the scumbanger. At some point, once Mary fully loathed Whiskers, and once Whiskers was able to socialize freely without Mary keeping tabs on him, I basically told him exactly what I wrote in this post, about my feelings waxing while Dennis's waned, and how I was working on accepting things for exactly what they were instead of what they might have been under different circumstances, blah blah blah. Well, he sniffed out my weakness and put on this creepily consistent, attentive, emotionally available guy act. It didn't work on me at first because I still thought Whiskers was butt-ass ugly. But then I checked myself for being shallow and decided to give him a chance, since he'd been consistently kind for several months. Several months is a long time, but I don't know. This mask is so light and breathable, I sometimes forget that I have it on. But we've seen his mask come off, oh yes. After some awkward initial missteps, Whiskers, now Whiskey, not yet Funky, and I got along well, and I felt proud of myself for finally being able to enjoy male attention from someone other than Dennis. I gave myself too much credit for helping Whiskey escape the crazy clutches of Mary, and I broke girl code when I dated the bearded giant, even though Mary had been through 4 new men since the night of the Christmas show. Oh yeah, and also she was still married. Girl code is a little bit trickier when you're dealing with a delusional maniac. Someone probably say that I didn't break girl code because of Mary's marital status. Mary, of course, says that I did break girl code. I mean, I'll admit that it's a little bit weird for me, but I don't know, people make choices, what do you want? Whether I did or didn't, I was being a crap friend because I cared more about doing something that felt mentally and emotionally healthy for me at the time than I did about Mary's easily hurt feelings. Either way, I'll get what's coming to me, both by way of karma and by way of Mary mania, so stay tuned for my comeuppance. And I neglected to mention that in the first Dennis chapter, something that is relevant to the story, so I'm just gonna mention it now. Remember how I wasn't able to sleep next to Dennis at first because I didn't feel comfortable enough, even though I was fine with banging him? Was that weird? It seemed a little weird to me. I would call it a little bit weird, yes. But everybody has like a different moral line. I'm not the fucking morality police out here. Well, maybe sometimes, a little bit. But really I can only tell you what I would do personally. OP says, I had a long think about all that after I began to accept that Dennis was a douche, so I made up a new rule. No banging dudes until I felt emotionally safe enough with them to literally sleep next to them. Sounds like a good rule to me. I mean, even if you think you're safe, somebody might knife you to death in your sleep, but I don't know, every day's a dice roll. I broke that rule with Scumbanger. Of course, I wasn't trying to have a relationship with that dreamy, depthless douche. I also broke that rule with Whiskey. Once. And by the time he convinced me that he had simply been too in his head because he cared so much, I flat out told him that I wasn't going to go to bed with him again unless I reached a point where I felt more comfortable with him. And dude did manage to make me feel at ease. Was this all an act? Yeah, of course. But how was I supposed to know it was an act? Especially when he was being infinitely kinder and more attentive to my emotions than Dennis had ever come close to being. It honestly felt like an improvement, At least in the beginning. Yeah, you gotta wait for the mask to come off. That's always the hardest part, isn't it? But there are always cracks in the veneer. You could see them if you look closely enough. And before I date somebody, you're going under a microscope. So, I fell asleep in Funky Whiskey's bed one night, and I took that to mean I must have trusted him, and that he might be worth considering as a legitimate romantic partner. I had established a boundary for myself long before things got real with that masked beardo, and although I faltered a few times, I felt like I was finally getting it right. I felt confident that I somehow walked into this hidden gem of a relationship. Yeah, because he's ugly. He must be a nice guy because he's ugly. It's like sort of a weird double standard there sometimes. I was dating a guy who wasn't my typical type, theater weirdo, attention seeker, pretty boy, but he had been consistently kind. Even when he was weird at first, he was convincingly apologetic for his weaknesses. And once things settled down and I persuaded him to stop worrying about boom boom and focus on being a genuine gentleman, he did exactly that. It was honestly an enjoyable companionship. Again, at least at first. That's how it began. Dennis, by being a middling piece of shit, had paved the way for Funky, a bona fide piece of shit, also alcoholic psycho, to do his very convincing impression of a normal human being. The impression that he'd honed over the many years he spent as Vert's maitre d' made him seem like a massive improvement over the last guy, and the guy before for that matter. So I felt that stupid sense of accomplishment and personal growth when I began to engineer feelings for this hidden gem of a man. Or so I thought. Every time I felt a sense of accomplishment within the context of a relationship in my younger days, it was a bad, bad thing. I endured terrible boom boom that I didn't even want in the first place. Accomplishment! I talked myself into liking a dude just because he called me back. Accomplishment! I just want to go back in time and scream in my own face. No! You shouldn't feel accomplished, you nitwit! You should feel giddy and Twitter-pated. You should feel simultaneously calm and euphoric. Enduring bad boom boom or liking the nice guy TM is not an accomplishment. Gah! I'd like to say that I'd be kinder to my younger self, but I'd probably be a lot more mean. Well, alright. I've taken you very patient people on the lamest romantic journey of my life. And with that one out of the way, let's have a drink at nasty-ass beer goggles next time. That's Married Mary part number 9, which I posted several months back before I decided to shoehorn the Dennis debacle into this story. So we're about to Tarantino back in time a few months, to just after I met Whiskey for an uneventful drink, and just before I started considering going out with him. Sorry if that creates any confusion, but thank you, as always, for being here. And if these stories haven't been to your liking, thank you for powering through and supporting ReddX. He deserves it. Let me tell you something, don't nobody deserve nothing in this world. But I am very, very excited and humbled having you guys along for the ride. Also, here are some peer-reviewed articles debunking blue balls. Hey, who knew? Again, I state anecdotally that one time it hurt really bad. I don't know if you fully understand.
What happened?
My wife say no, and now my balls are blue.
Yeah, we definitely went like a bit out of the way describing Dennis, but it does help to frame things for like why you couldn't see Funky for what he truly is. Sometimes we get all twisted up jumping from relationship to relationship. You need to stop, reset your compass, work on yourself. But yeah, I didn't do that shit in my early 20s, so I can't sit here and preach it for you unless you'd like to try something different than I did. Whatever. Nice beefy episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far. For real, for real. If you'd like to sign up on Patreon or YouTube memberships, I'd be so appreciative. A couple of dollars a month is all I ask. Like, if we got enough people to do it, I could be totally rich. Which, I mean, doesn't mean nothing for you, but it would be really cool for me. Anyways, I hope you guys always remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one, friends. So until then, bye-bye.